all fired up.
I can tell. And now everyone else knows as well. Welcome back to the Talking Average Fitness podcast, ladies and gentlemen. As always, my name is Sam Burns. And joining me is the only person who's more wrong about Olympic weightlifting than Dr. Joel Seedman, Mr. Kevin McCarthy. Kevin, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, and I'm joined today by the only nerd who stands by you have to wrap your thumb around a fucking pull-up bar.
I'm not the only nerd. I'm one of many
Well, you're not the
nerds.
only nerd. You're one of many nerds. You're the
I'm a
only
very
nerd in
vocal
my
nerd.
life. Yeah, very vocal nerd. Maybe that's the
Yes.
way to put it. You're a very
Yeah.
vocal nerd.
Um, so this is another, I'm going to find my phone here, make sure I can read this correctly. So today's topic, there's a lot of topics that are
Are you
coming
gonna
from.
read my message back to me?
No, no. Well,
Okay.
kind of, yes.
You can. That's. I didn't say anything, but I stand by my statement.
Oh, I know you do. I know you do. I
And
don't want to give it
I'll
away
explain
though.
why. I'll explain
Um,
why.
so I have a friend from CrossFit Medfield. Her name is
Yep.
Carly. Um, Carly thinks too much about a lot of things, and God love her. Like, this is one of the reasons she's in my life, is because she thinks about these things, and then she's like, Sam, you need to talk about this, and
Yeah.
it's is really great. And so one of the things that she was talking about was which how different sports translate to success in CrossFit, right?
Hmm.
So, for example, like a background in swimming versus soccer versus softball or something like that, like how relatively successful a person might be compared to other backgrounds or no background, right?
Right.
um, sh- and I said that's a one-word episode, and the word is gymnastics. Um, and and then I said, maybe are there sports that translate, and if so, to what degree and why? And then someone else chimes in, well, Matt Fraser was an Olympic weightlifter,
Mhm.
and I was like, well, Matt Fraser also outworked everybody, so you can't really make that. And then she said, ooh, if you narrowed it down to only gymnastics or Olympic weightlifting as a background, which
Mhm.
would you prefer as a competitive CrossFitter? And I
Mm.
and no surprise, my
Yeah.
response was gymnastics, right?
Yep. Yep.
And so I sent that to Kevin, like, screenshot that, and I sent it to
Yeah.
him,
Yep.
and um and he's like, I disagree.
All I sent back was I disagree.
And
Sam got just like
I was surprised. I was like,
he was
you
like,
do,
wait a minute, what?
yeah,
No, you
like,
fucking don't.
yeah, literally. I said, you do not. You're kidding. And
Yeah,
you're like, I do actually.
actually, I do.
So
Oh my gosh, the one thing me and Sam disagree on.
it's like fundamentally disagree.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh
what's
man.
funny about this is this shouldn't be surprising, because I have a greater exposure to gymnastics inside and outside of CrossFit than your average coach.
Yep.
And Kevin has a greater exposure to Olympic weightlifting inside and outside of CrossFit than
Mhm.
your average coach. So
Yep.
this is actually really, really cool. So we get to admit our biases at the
Yep.
front
Yep.
and make a case, right?
Mhm.
So setting some parameters here, right? So the idea here is we're gonna craft a competitive CrossFitter.
Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
So
Makes it easier.
yeah,
I'm already winning.
shut up. I still have I still have what I think are valid arguments for this.
Yeah,
So
I'm ready to hear him. Maybe you'll change my mind.
I don't think so, but I still think I'm
I
right.
highly doubt it, but
Right.
that's okay. That's
So we're
okay.
crafting competitive CrossFitters. All right. So
Yeah.
we are not interested in saving someone's life. We're not
Mhm.
interested in establishing full range of motion and keeping people pain free. We want a batshit MFer who's gonna come in and win. Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
So
And so I'm assuming we're going for like in the shortest time possible, right? Like the quickest, which sport background is going to be the quickest point from I started CrossFit yesterday to I won the CrossFit Games yesterday? Listen.
I really don't like that
if,
detail.
if we're talking about, okay, and I rest my case, ladies and gentlemen. I rest my case.
So
And I'm not just talking like the Matt Fraser, because Matt Fraser went from like I started CrossFit yesterday to I won the CrossFit Games in like 3 years. And again, we'll put aside because
yeah,
Matt is an anomaly of he not only had like regardless of sport, he was an elite level athlete in his
yes,
sport, which
yes,
gives him an advantage not just in how strong he is, how conditioned he is, whatever, but it's also like more upstairs as well. Like
yeah.
he knows how to fucking train hard and like push himself to that, like push the envelope to that point where he's going to garner such an adaptation.
Well, and then like that's all the training, and then there's the game day effect,
Yeah.
and there
Like,
are a lot of
how to compete.
exactly, which is a
Yeah.
totally different skill set, and like
Totally different.
you
Yep.
know, I
There's so many people. There's so many people that like you see not only like on Instagram, might know some people at your gym where like you see them in class, you see them in training, you're like, wow, you're a fucking monster.
savage,
And then you watch them do quarterfinals and they finish 5,000th, and you're like, what happened? Like
right?
what I don't understand how you can do all the things you can do in training,
Yeah,
like hey, you just beat Matt Fraser's time on 7 games events in training,
yeah,
and then you came 5,000. Like there are some people that just like the mindset for competing is different,
yes, it
and to
is.
be like a game day competitor is a different thing. And the fact that Matt came into CrossFit with the caveat of CrossFit being still relatively in its infancy, we'll say, as a sport.
Yeah,
Like when you come into like, people are starting to ramp it up, and,
the games were less than 10 years old.
yeah, the games are starting to ramp up and starting to become a legit thing.
Yeah,
But the field wasn't quite as dense as it was, not to discredit Matt because
yeah,
everything he did was incredible, but
yeah,
he came into the sport at a time, like, I don't think it matters now what background you have in sport. Nobody's going from zero to the games in 2 years like Matt did.
yeah,
Like it's just not happening.
yeah,
And so that was a bit of an anomaly. And I don't think it would have mattered what athletic background he came in with, like
right.
the fact that he had that game day like approach and he was that competitive and
Yeah,
did work that much harder than everybody. It would have happened for him regardless, just because he's just a human weapon.
yeah.
So
So I think your notion of like zero to hero
mhm,
definitely slants the argument, right? I and I'm willing to concede that because
mhm,
the most difficult thing to do over longitudinal time is build strength,
mhm.
hands down.
100%. And
Yes.
that's kind of the basis of my argument. I'll get into my argument in a sec. That's the
Right.
basis of my argument.
All right. So let's not get too in the weeds. So I'll go back to what I said initially, and
Okay.
I'll make my case, right?
Okay. You make your case. I'll make my case. We'll let our
Right.
tens of listeners be the jury and decide the verdict.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so um if we're going to prefer as a competitive CrossFitter, a person who I was going to
Hmm.
create as a competitive CrossFitter, I would want a gymnast. And
Hmm.
I said gymnastics, no contest. Gymnasts are pound for pound the strongest humans ever, right?
Agreed.
They also have better motor control than
Agreed.
weightlifters. Okay.
Hmm.
And then Olympic weightlifting and weightlifting in general would only make them stronger. Plus, they'd have fewer mobility issues. My friends had suggested, well, what about endurance athletes? I said, adding endurance isn't hard. It's just miserable.
Yep.
So
Agreed.
when it comes to, yeah, agreed. When it comes down to, what it really comes down to is what limitations do you want to have coming into the creation process? My
Mhm.
contention was that a background in gymnastics provides you with the fewest limitations. And so, like, because like if you were going to have a person who wanted to go become a CrossFitter, it was like, they've got pretty decent endurance and they're really strong, but they can't open their shoulders past this angle. Like that's going to be a problem for any
Mhm.
number of
Yeah.
reasons.
Yep.
Um, whereas if I get a person who's pretty mobile, I get a person who, uh, and like in preparation for this, I was thinking about
Cat hair.
no, actually, I gave myself a haircut. And so, like,
Oh, you just got
dudes
all
and
sorts of
beards,
hairs
yeah,
everywhere.
hair
Yep.
everywhere.
All sorts of hair everywhere.
I was thinking about the 10 general physical skills, right? Like,
Okay.
which of those rather, would a gymnast be able to check mark heading into the process, right? So coordination, accuracy, agility, balance, I believe basically the entire second half would be 4 check marks right off the bat. Strength, I would say particularly upper body strength, especially for if we're going to keep this to male gymnasts specifically, right? Upper body strength would be a no contest. Cardiaerobic and respiratory endurance, I believe that tilts in favor of gymnasts versus Olympic weightlifters.
I agree.
Right, so there's 6 out of 10. Flexibility.
Yep.
I think they're like, and I concede your point that like really high level Olympic weightlifters probably have pretty good mobility because you don't get to move like shit and lift maximal loads.
Yeah, I would even like argue like a moderate level weightlifter would have like relatively, above average mobility at the very least, because you try and do a snatch once with more than an empty bar, and if you can't hit the positions, like that ain't gonna go your way, homie.
Or getting hands in a loaded position above your head,
Yep. Whole thing.
And then where my flexibility,
power, speed, endurance. Those are the 3 that you're missing.
No, cardiovascular, respiratory endurance is the first one.
Oh,
stamina. Sorry. Stamina is what I'm thinking.
There we go. That's the one. Yeah. Sorry.
Stamina, probably not pushing the envelope. I mean, maybe like a lot of gymnastics, my understanding, again, I'm not an expert. I'm a little bit more educated than the average coach, perhaps. My understanding is that a lot of competitive gymnastics is like you're rehearsing for the routine. And so your stamina is the window of time it takes to accomplish the routine. Whereas it might not be, like you're going for like maximal repetitions or something like that. It's not like muscular endurance, so to speak. I imagine that there's a fair amount of that is developed, but I don't know that it's a thing that is sought in terms of developing that, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And then power and speed. Power and speed relative to the load that is being moved, I think that it's off the charts. And if you, especially females on the mixed bars, the uneven parallel bars.
Yeah.
Like the shapes that their bodies have to hold in order to move in the ways that they need to is the power with which they open and close their hips, the speed at which they're moving. It's on another level. I don't know that that those things can be developed maximally without an external load, but relative to body weight, I think that nobody is in the same league. And I think that having all of those things provides me with an optimal foundation from which to build. And it's like, okay, now I'm going to take a person who already knows how to move, has control of their body, and I'm simply going to teach them a new skill, right? And we're talking about the best skill, acquisition humans in the world. I'm going to teach them a new skill, and they're already going to be crazy strong in an overhead position, and they can, pistol squat, run, jump, and all the other things that we need to do for lower body without a problem. Now it's just progressive loading. And they're going to go, they're going to go bonkers.
They'll never have a problem hitting hip extension. I'll tell you that.
Right. Yeah.
They'll never have a problem. You'll never be like, hey, I need you to jump hard. You'll be like, God damn. Like,
You're like an 11 and you should bring it back to like a 6.
Yeah. I need to dial it back. Oh man.
So when I think about building an athlete, I'd rather start with that than not, I guess. Okay, I've talked for like 10 minutes straight now.
Yeah, you have a very solid argument. You have a very solid argument. I would agree that if you take someone who's a former gymnast, regardless of level of gymnast, someone's a former gymnast, they probably have a stronger foundation with which to build upon to do CrossFit. They've checked off more of the 10 general physical skills. I agree with that.
Did you just concede my point and did I just win?
No, you didn't, because we're talking about building a competitive athlete. So it gives you a strong foundation to go forth and do CrossFit things.
Okay.
The problem is if we take, let's say, we take like from a similar level, right? Take like if I don't know how you would equate level of gymnastics and weightlifting, but let's say that they're both
nationally ranked.
Okay. There we go. So we're both we're nationally ranked gymnast, nationally ranked weightlifter.
Sure.
Right now, as incredible of a foundation as your gymnast has, Mr. National ranked weightlifter is coming into CrossFit with 130 kilo snatch and 170 kilo clean and jerk. For those that don't speak kilos, that's a 285 pound snatch and a 375 clean and jerk.
Like all I can hear is Birdie from CrossFit Gymnastics being like, "What is that in real money?" that's how he describes it. And he perpetually he's like blah 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 kg blah 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 blah, and everyone's looking at him like he's speaking Greek, and he's like fuck. So he's constantly having to do the conversion. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So, Mr. Nationally ranked weightlifter, if you're nationally ranked,
what was that for a snatch? Give me that snatch weight again.
285, 130. So, yeah. So, there were dudes that I competed against that were like in my weight class in just a local meet.
Yeah.
That could snatch 265.
Wow.
Like, and this is someone who's not nationally ranked. So if you're nationally ranked, and I'm like aiming for the body weight that like a CrossFitter would be. So you're looking at like the
85 kilos
80,
or 85.
They just changed the weight classes, 89 to 96 kilo weight class, which is like, 89 kilos.
We're talking like 190 to 210
ish. Yeah.
Ballpark.
And so you're looking at that body weight range. So those are the kind of dudes I'm like looking at. So it's not, if you're a nationally ranked weightlifter, like some of the best lifters in the 96 kilo weight class can snatch somewhere in the realm of like 155 to 165, which 160 kilo snatch is 352. So there are dudes that are like in the that 210 that 96 kilo weight class that can snatch 365.
And that's probably semi-reliable. That's not like at the end of a progression at a meet.
Right. So it's like that, like their working sets are 160 and they're trying to peak to hit like 167 on meet day to medal at nationals.
Amazing.
So it's like, 170 kilo snatch is 375. And it's, like those dudes are just so absurdly strong. It's offensive.
Yes.
So my contention with the weightlifter is Home Sizzle's coming into CrossFit. He walks in. It's my first day doing CrossFit. I'm going to give it a go. All right, we're doing a heavy snatch day. We're going to do some 5s, 3s, 1s. Just build as heavy as you can.
Sure.
And we're going to do so in a 25-minute window. And this dude's like, 25-minute window. He's like, it takes me 57 minutes to get to like my first heavy single.
Right. Yeah.
Like that's a lot of plates on the bar.
Yeah.
And so he comes in and this person has such a strong base level of strength. Like they're coming into CrossFit essentially with Matt Fraser level strength. You can snatch 300 pounds. You can clean and jerk almost 400. You can back squat in the mid 5s and pull close to 6. Those are elite level strength numbers in the sport.
Sure.
So they don't have to touch a barbell ever again. And we've already established that you can build a baller set of lungs as long as you're willing to suffer.
Yeah.
So It'll take them the same amount of time as the gymnast to build the conditioning.
I think,
Here's
okay, go. I'm going to reserve comment. Go ahead.
Okay, so reserve your comment. So
Yeah,
because you're gonna see where I'm going with this. When I
I'm
say
going to take
like
notes.
I'm gonna quantify it. You take notes. You
Okay.
sit there and scribble it down. Um, so when I say like all the conditioning, like they're probably farther off the mark from an aerobic standpoint. However, you give this weightlifter like 4 weeks to do some breathing, and then you have them do grace, and they'll do it sub 60. Like they're going to be able to cycle a barbell at a rate that you won't be able to. It's going to be like, you want to see me run to the mountain and back? You want to see me do it again? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's them moving a barbell
Right.
at regardless of load. They're like cycle a 225 snatch, easy.
Right.
Like it's just all the barbell cycling is going to be so easy, and so they're so efficient moving a barbell. There's zero energy wasted. They don't have to learn how. It's just second nature. And then once they start to get some set of lungs, they're like, okay, barbell cycling is good. Strength, we're squared away. The, conditioning and aerobic systems, we're going. But, my primary argument where I was disagreeing with Sam was like, if you take a nationally ranked competitive weightlifter and you take a nationally ranked competitive weightlifter and a nationally ranked gymnast, the gymnast is going to take probably 6 years at least to snatch and clean and jerk and squat what this dude can. But I can probably in a day get weightlifter dude doing muscle ups and multiple of them. They might not be the prettiest muscle up in the world, but they are more than strong enough. They just need to now learn how to move their body. Is it going to be the prettiest muscle up ever? No, it's not. However, weightlifter dude is probably strong enough to bang out 10 on day one. So you take that, you're muted, by the way. So you take that, okay. You take that level of capacity of they're just so strong that they can already do a muscle up without trying. They basically just yeet themselves up on top of the rings. They're like, look, I did it. Take a couple months to clean that up. And now they're going from I can do 8 to 10 sketchy looking ones to I'm now doing 15 to 20 pretty looking ones, just because they have a base level of strength that's so insane that it's easy for them to produce force and learn those things. So my contention, again, if we're going with the trying to make it happen, go from zero to hero in as short a time as possible, the weightlifter will win because, again, equating, they're both nationally ranked.
Yeah.
Just because it's going to take the gymnast 6 to 8 years to start to approach the strength numbers that the weightlifter can do rolling out of his deathbed.
Right.
So that's my contention as to why a weightlifter would be the better background sport to try and do competitive CrossFit, is just because they can learn the other things of the sport faster than the gymnast can.
Yeah. I think so. As I'm listening, you make a bunch of really excellent points. I think at maximal capacity, no one's stronger than Olympic weightlifters. That's why they do what they do. So like you could make the comment that like world's strongest man, like Hafthor Bjornsson, is an incredibly strong human, right? But what he trades in developing that raw absolute strength is things like mobility, speed, endurance, and all the stuff that comes with being just a giant human. So you're right that an Olympic weightlifter is going to come into the game with the ability to put more on the bar. I think that's going to cost them certain things, though. For example, you've got a person who is able to move an incredible amount of weight once. And the development of that endurance to be able to move even a moderate load or a more moderate load. Aerobically, I think you're right. I think it's the same amount of effort. I do think the gymnast comes in better conditioned, right? I think the other thing that the Olympic weightlifter is going to have against them is movement patterns. Right. So you mentioned Grace, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You watch Dan Bailey do
Yep.
weapons grade Grace,
Yep.
which
The video is insane.
if you've never seen that video,
Go watch it.
go like stop. It literally will only take you 61 seconds. Go
Yep.
Google Dan Bailey weapons grade
Weapons
Grace.
grade Grace.
Oh,
Yep.
I'm getting goosebumps. I'm fucking getting goosebumps thinking about that video.
That video gets me hyped up. It's
right.
Great.
Yes. And then you're like, oh wait, he's moving 135 pounds like it's an empty barbell. That's
Right.
a problem. And so then I get hyped up to do Grace with an empty barbell, and I just tell myself it's the same thing.
Yep.
The movement, you want to talk about, like the Olympic weightlifter has optimized for a certain range of motion, a certain movement pattern, and things like that. Getting them out of that and into a new movement pattern is going to take twice as long as the person who's really good at new skill acquisition and is just learning it the CrossFit way for the first time.
I still think so. I think.
Hang on. And here's my evidence for that.
Okay. Hit me with your
Years ago, Brute Strength did the show up, like the competition videos. It was
Those were amazing between the different the
Yes.
weightlifters and that
So
was great. It was like CrossFitter, a bodybuilder,
Yep.
a weightlifter, and a powerlifter, right?
Yes. CrossFitter, bodybuilder, weightlifter, and powerlifter. And the CrossFitter was Jacob Hepner. And
Yep.
I don't remember anyone else. And
The weightlifter was Louis Mosquera. He was like a 62 kilo world champion. So
of course
on the lighter side.
Yeah.
So at the 62 kilos, he weighs like 137. So like very small, very lean athlete, very strong.
Mm-hmm.
The power lifter, I can't remember his name. And the bodybuilder, I can see him, but I can't remember his name. It's going to frustrate me.
Anyway. So what ends up happening is like they have them do something from everybody. A max event, this, like a pose off, something else, and then they had him do Grace. And so this Jacob Hepner, 3, 2, 1, go, and Homeboy's doing exactly what you expect. Minimal amount of range of motion in order to achieve the quickest possible result. So it's, power clean, partial dip receiving position at the shoulder, push press, back down, and just cycle. I think he did 20 unbroken, quick breath, last 10. And it took him like a minute 30. And he finishes, and he's a little out of breath, but like more or less he's all set. And
all right.
Everyone else is just like
2 minutes. He finished like 2 minutes faster than the next closest person.
Well, yeah, like so everyone else is like still working. He's just sitting on his bar and just like hanging out. And they're like, "Is that a PR?" He's like, "Probably. I don't track."
I don't know. Yeah.
But what happened was like the bodybuilder finished second, and then the Olympic weightlifter finished last. And part of it is one.
I thought he finished third. I thought the power finished that. Okay. All right.
So part of it is the Olympic weightlifter squat cleaned every rep. And then the other one of it is he had to do more than 5.
Yeah.
And
big
problem. Like you've got one motor pattern and you're not used to moving more than 5 reps at a time. And I think he did singles the entire time.
He did. I think he and the powerlifter did singles. The bodybuilder just did like a stand reverse curl and press.
Yes.
It was amazing.
He did like a hammer curl.
He literally like just grabbed it on the bar, just like stood up, reverse curled it, and then strict pressed it and was just like going to town. I don't think his arms ever straightened past like a 70-degree angle. Like he's just going the bicep pump. The best part, because then they had them do like a 1 rep max power clean as well. Or 1 rep max clean was the event. And you watch the power lifter and the bodybuilder literally do just a standing reverse curl.
Mm-hmm.
Jake Hepner knows how to power clean, but it's like his power clean taps out at like 375.
Whereas the Olympic weightlifter.
275. God, 375. Jesus. No, 275. Sorry. Whatever. And then the weightlifter that literally weighs as much as the bodybuilder's right forearm, just like continues to power clean up to, I think he power cleaned 160 and then just stopped because he's like at nobody else is even
160 kilos.
Remote. Yeah, 160. So 352
Yeah.
is what he power cleaned. And so um, he was like, he just stopped, but he had way more in the tank.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just like, yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, it wasn't just men. They did a female video with
Yep.
Maddie Rogers, Dana Lynn Bailey, Maddie Forberg, and Brooke Ents,
And Brookends. Yep.
which
Although the
also,
one kind of like caveat with that women's one, because that was a cool video as well.
yes.
But it's like, but Maddie Rogers
Yeah.
started out as a competitive CrossFitter. So
Yes.
when they did their like the CrossFit thing, she was like not so far out of her depth. She
Yeah.
wasn't comfy,
Yeah.
but she was like, I've done this shit before. But they actually had them do
Christine.
an actual, yeah, exactly, like an actual like Metcon. Whereas like, not that Grace isn't a good CrossFit workout, but it's like
It's
you're
different.
just cranked on a bar. It's
Yeah.
different. Whereas
Yeah.
like you've got 3 rounds of row, box jump, and like you're watching Maddie Forberg, who is a power lifter, and she can deadlift twice as much as I can,
Right.
and is like half my size.
Yeah.
And she like you're watching her like she does the first round, and of course you're going with everybody, so you're like, I'm gonna give it.
Yep.
And then you watch the second round in the row, and she's rowing at like a 347 pace, just dying, and you're like, oh, there it is.
I know that feeling.
Oh God, we've been there.
So,
We've all
so
been
all
there.
all of this is roundabout. So we got into this. We talked about movement patterns, right?
Yep.
My contention is that a gymnast is less optimized in a manner that I'm going to have to unfuck, right? Whereas an Olympic weightlifter is hyper optimized. Like going back to like first, second, and third wave adaptation, right?
Yeah.
I think a gymnast. I don't know if I can say that. Never mind. I think it's just different. I mean, they
I
might
want
be.
you to say it.
I
I want you to say it. Make my day. Let's go.
I
Let's
want
get it
to
going.
like I want to say that a gymnast lives more in second wave adaptation than third wave adaptation, only
Like
because
just in general or in their sport.
in their sport, because the thing that leaves them open to move back is their the neurological half being so developed. So like on the physiological side is really, so first wave, second wave, third wave adaptation for the people who don't know. So real quick overview. You come in, you do a bench press. It's the first time you've ever done a bench press. Empty barbell, your arms are going to shake, right? They're shaking for two reasons.
You're wobbling all over the place. Yeah.
Absolutely. The bar is heavy, maybe relative to what you are capable of moving, but also two, you've never done it before. And so you've got to string together a new chain of electrical signals in the neurons in your brain to tell that shit to happen, right?
Yeah.
The second time you come back, you wobble less. And it's not because you got stronger, it's because chain of neurons is better, right?
Yeah. You're
Second way,
developed a new movement pattern.
yes, you develop
Or
a new
developing
movement.
a new
Right.
movement pattern. Words.
Which, by the way, if you ever want to know how to hack movement patterns, I can tell you exactly how to do it in a way that is like scientifically proven. Anyway, the second wave adaptation is you're on a linear strength cycle. You're putting on weight. You're putting weight on the bar, getting stronger, blah, blah, blah. Third wave adaptation is you get so good at the bench press that you no longer know how to squat or run or anything else. It comes at the expense of other things.
And it's like to see improvements in that, you have to start like using chains and bands and reverse tension and boards, and like you have to nerd out on the bench press,
right,
and become a specialist essentially to continue to make progress in
yes.
that. So it's like it's not like you continue to add 5 pounds every week. It's like now to add 5 pounds, you have to do a 12-week block of bandit like reverse band tension bench presses.
Right. You become a conjugate
to
expert.
get there. Exactly, which there's a time and place for that. So with that, I think I don't disagree with that statement that weightlifters live more in the third wave adaptation
neurologically, specifically
yes.
neurologically.
Yep. I think that's accurate, because for gymnasts, if we look at it from that model, like you insert said skill. To get better at said skill, you just continue doing said skill. Like just keep practicing it until that like you're getting it down.
Yeah, sure.
Correct?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, specifically, I'm thinking the variation in skills. So, the Olympic weightlifter is not as practiced. This is a contention. This is not a statement about Olympic weightlifters and their uh, brain capacity. By virtue of the number of skills that gymnasts have to develop, their brains are more elastic, and then they can acquire proficiency in new skills faster than an Olympic weightlifter might be able to.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think. Yeah, I don't know where my head was going with that. I just like
Well,
I had a train of thought and it just like off it went.
also, I think I have a resolution, right?
Mhm.
Short term, shortest possible window. I think the
Yeah,
Olympic weightlifter will probably get there before the gymnast.
I agree.
Over the long term, I
Yeah.
think not only would the gymnast eventually catch up, I think they would be able to have a greater percentage of wins than the Olympic weightlifter, and especially if Boz is programming, because
Ooh. So therein
yeah,
lies like the crux of the thing is like that, in theory, what was I gonna say? It was, man, when it comes down to when you look at like quarterfinals programming, semifinals programming, all
mm-hmm,
this fun stuff,
mm-hmm,
in the grand scheme of things, the
yeah,
fittest people, they're gonna end up being there. It doesn't matter what you throw at Pat Bellner.
yeah.
He's gonna make it to the games and he's gonna be a top contender at the games
Pat's doing
because
what's
he's just
required to
he's
get
just
there.
he's just that level athlete.
Yes.
Um, for the people that are kind of like on that cusp and on that bubble that still do have some weaknesses in their game, the programming can make or break your weekend. If you go to
Yeah.
semifinals and you're like, all right, I am the weightlifter. I'm great at barbell stuff. Like I haven't figured out the wall facing handstand push up yet. And Boz goes, "What's up, buddy?
Yeah.
How we doing? You ready to have a
Yeah.
good weekend? Fuck you and your feelings. Like have some wall facing handstand push ups, but this time make them on the rings."
Right.
And you're like,
You can't do wall facing
I'm
handstand
just waiting
push-ups on
for
a
you.
ring.
Well, true, but well, not with that attitude. But
First of all, through Jesus, anything is possible. So
oh man,
I think you're right. Like, and we see
yeah,
this in masters populations. Like,
yeah,
especially even at the games, like there comes a certain point in the weekend where like 50% of the field is cut because they don't
yep,
have handstand walks or muscle ups. And like that's not an accident. They do that deliberately. Um,
yep.
so skill acquisition is a delimiter in
Hmm.
thinning the herd. I heard on one of the seminars I was on recently, one of the things that um, this coach thought was within the realm of possibility is we start seeing higher skill gymnastics coupled together as like a complex. So, for example, from standing underneath the rig, candlestick burpee, back up, jump onto the bar, right? Glide kip to top support, drop kip, back up, forward roll, down, something, you know? And that's one rep. And do 15 reps for time or something like that,
I would lose my lunch. Jesus.
right? And like it's niche, but to a certain extent,
Yeah,
it's no more niche than the bear complex, where, pick a given load, do 7 cycles of power clean, front squat, push press, back rack, back squat, back rack, push press, right? Unbroken, 7
yeah.
reps. Um, and so if the bear complex can be something like that, or grace, 30 clean and jerks for time, or, another more common weightlifting thing, then why not gymnastic skills?
See, I mean, they've done it in semifinal. What was it last year in semifinals? They had um, was it the clean complex where it was like wasn't like 3 deadlifts, 2 cleans, 1
Yes,
jerk or something like
there you
that.
go. Right. So they do it in weightlifting all the time. And this is where
See, I'm helping your point.
you are helping me out. And I appreciate you. I think we're going to see more and more of this. Like
Hmm.
the movements with the barbell aren't going to get weirder. Like we kind of have the movement
It's
pool
yeah,
figured out, right? So I mean,
yeah,
you can mix the pieces, and we're getting closer to bumping up against, like, the ceiling on lifts is not going to move that much, right?
yeah. Because you just, I mean, there
I
comes
don't.
a point where it's like you can't just keep going. Let's just make it heavier. Let's just make it heavier. There comes a point where it's like this is how much human beings can lift
Yeah,
whilst being able to do these other things.
exactly.
And there's going to come a point where you know and I really, with the evolution of CrossFit and CrossFit as a sport, a lot of it for a while was like just making the barbell heavier. Like,
Yeah,
hey, we used to do power cleans at 185. Now we're doing them at 225. Now we're doing them at 275.
right.
And we saw that evolution. I mean, was at the 2020 CrossFit Games, the virtual section,
Yeah,
the horrible twist on Annie, where it was like the drag rope, double unders, GHD sit-ups, and 5 4 3 2 1 of cleans at
oh,
275, and
yeah,
anyone worth their salt as an athlete was power cleaning that bitch.
yeah,
So it's like, so we used to power clean 185, now we're doing 225, now we're doing 275.
yeah,
In the open, they had the clean and jerk ladder where it got up to 315, and people were power cleaning that thing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it's like the, you know, what's next?
Right.
Power clean 360. Like it, it's maybe, but
So
it's like
to that
the
point, like,
evolution, the gymnastics hasn't necessarily evolved the
yes,
same as the weightlifting has progressed, but it's a different because the sports are so different. It's a different progression. For the barbell, it's like, hey, here are the movements.
yes,
You add load. For
yes,
gymnastics, it's like, here are the base movements. Add complexity.
yes, and
I hate, I don't, sorry, I'm gonna say one more thing
yeah,
because I hate it. I don't like when they like take gymnastics in the games or in CrossFit and they're like, let's add a vest. That's
right.
not
No.
how you'd go about increasing the intensity or making. So it's at semifinals this year, the stupid fucking ruck event where they're
Mm,
like, hey, you're gonna do the muscle up complex, the toe to ring muscle up dip complex, 5 reps of that, and then was it max burpee box jump overs in the remaining
something like that.
time?
Yeah.
It was like an AMRAP. It's like short AMRAP, 5 complex buy-in, then burpee box jump overs.
Right.
And they're just leave it alone. Just do that.
Yeah.
Like adding the ruck then took that event from being because generally if you look across the programming, you ideally want to see things balanced across time domains, loading ranges, rep ranges, and different capacities.
Mm-hmm.
So generally in most competitions, you see there's one workout where it's like, yep, this is a big boy workout. Like you
Right.
better have been eating your Wheaties to do this workout really well.
Well, it's
And then
like
there's
the
usually
Aromas
one
trail run
that's,
right into the deadlift.
oh, perfect.
Right.
Brilliant example. The best thing did you on that documentary where they were like, Sam Dancer checked out of life and finished the trail run dead last. So he was
Yes.
up to deadlift first. And they were like, Sam, are you going to warm up? He was like, I just ran 7K. I'm warm. And just
Right.
started ripping deadlifts on that thing. That's amazing. Anyway, like stuff like that,
Yeah.
where you see a bit of a balance. And, at semifinals of regionals, there was generally one where it's like, this is your heavy and strong person
Right.
workout. This is your lighter, more gymnastically inclined person workout.
Yeah.
What adding the ruck did to that event was that took any advantage away from your gymnastically inclined athlete because they had to strap on a higher percentage of their body weight. If
Mm-hmm.
you take an athlete, if you take me and Colin and we're doing muscle ups
Okay.
and you strap a weight vest on each of us, it's like I have added less of a percentage of my body weight.
Yeah.
He's added more percentage of his body weight. It takes
Yes.
away all of his advantage and now makes it's not necessarily a big or small person workout. It's just the workout.
Yeah.
And it takes away that balancing effect. So I don't like when that happens because like you add load to a barbell, don't add load to gymnastics. You don't need to. Like if you want to make it more challenging, ask your athletes to either go faster or do more reps,
Right.
or as we're talking about, do something more complex.
Right. And I think that
Don't add load. I don't like that.
well, so I think And it'd be interesting to see where CrossFit as an organization programming for competitive sport heads with this in the next several years. It's like, you can get creative with how you layer things about, but gymnastics really is one of those things where it's like, at some point you just have to ask people to do some weird shit, and you can make it, it's not like do a skin the cat. You can make it, max time front lever. Like
-7 seconds.
Right? Like, can you front lever? Because if you can't front lever and you don't know how to over grip, like all those motherfuckers who don't use that thumb, like all of a sudden you're fucked. And so I would love to see something like that. And that's totally an underdeveloped place in competition. The question is, do they give a shit enough? Are they consulting with somebody who understands the value or how to program something like that in, or do they think they've got it licked? And is that something that they feel like they could use in, like, can you do an iron cross? Max seconds iron cross. All right, go.
0.2.
Yeah,
I got 0.002 seconds before my rotator cuff exploded.
So
the thing is though, is that's part of the progression. So again, that's part of the progression of the sport.
Yes.
People didn't used to be able to power clean the shit out of 315.
Yes.
The sport asked that of them, and then they learned how to do it and built the capacity to do it. So
not just the competitors, but everybody else too.
Everybody else, because this is how the sport and the community of CrossFit are somewhat intertwined, because
they are intertwined.
It happens in the sport. Yeah. When it happens in the sport, if you think was 15 years ago, you would never once in a million years have programmed a workout at your affiliate with power cleans at 225. It would not have even been a question. You'd be like, that's insane.
I mean, it would have been anomalous for sure, but I think to a certain extent, 15 years ago, people also who were doing CrossFit were like, fuck, that's weird. Okay, let's give it a shot, because it was the psychos who did CrossFit. So,
but to that point, it's, once people realize that it's possible, they'll start doing it. But people aren't going to realize it's possible until it's asked of us and one person does it. Like, you look at when they're like, no one can run a mile, was a sub 4 was the benchmark. And no one can, physiologists, scientists, no one can run a mile sub 4. It's impossible. It's not possible for humans. And then one crazy motherfucker ran a 3:56 mile. Within the next calendar year, 12 more runners had a sub 4 minute mile. And it's like, you just need one person to be like, I'm going to go do that.
Also, FYI, Nikolai Romanov from Pose Method says that the theoretical maximum for a human being for a mile time is 2 minutes and change.
I could see that, because if you looked at a 400 meter or something, the world record 400 meter run is what, 42 seconds?
Something like that.
Something like that. So you take 42 times 2 is a minute 24 times 2 that's 2:48. So that follows. You just would have to have absurd capacity, but I don't, I can see where that you're like, yep, that checks out. It just is going to take someone crazy doing it. But I think for the sport to continue to evolve, and I know people aren't going to like this, and I'll throw Colin under the bus for the games last year, the crossover double unders.
Yeah,
he hated that, and I know that had mixed reviews. People the dumbest thing in the entire world is a party trick. It ruined the event. Okay, could that event have gone better if they had done triple unders? Would more people have finished? Would more people have gotten to the next handstand walk part? Probably. But now look at how many people can do crossovers, whether they be singles or doubles.
Sure.
Because they're like, I don't want that to happen again. The same thing happened with the pegboard. Dave Castro firmly inserted a pegboard inside the anus of every single games athlete in 2016. And they went, ouchie, I don't like that. So then everybody and their fucking mom got a pegboard and started practicing. And then the next year, everybody smashed that pegboard.
Yeah.
Because again, once it's asked of you, you'll do it.
Or the pig flip.
Right, same thing.
Which
insert whatever it is here.
everybody, like, and we're way off topic at this point, but like, I'll never forget that everybody was focused on, like, because hashtag games documentary, Matt Fraser
Yeah.
being like, you know, oh, my biceps and all of that stuff. And our very own Spencer Hendel demolished that event.
Demolished.
Like the
Watching
casual
Spec do that
manner,
event was amazing.
the how do I want to phrase this? The lack of give a fuck factor that he exhibited with each one of those reps was offensive. Like he was like, this is just inconvenient as he's flipping 600 pounds.
Yeah. He literally, like, the two people that really impressed me on that event, like watching it, is like you watching people like kind of get it, like kind of just holding it on their hands and like on their biceps, and they like shove their chin into it, and then they try and like either march their way up and then do like a bicep curl, and you're watching Matt like pick it up, bicep curl that bitch up to his shoulders, and then push it, and he's like, that's why he couldn't climb the rope. And the two people that crushed it were Spencer and Ben Smith. Were the two athletes that just started chucking that bitch, and they're going, and they flip that thing. Like, if you don't know what the pig is, like, go have a watch that event, but it's basically the size of it's a 600-pound refrigerator that needed to be flipped down a football field. And so they're like, to put it bluntly, that's what it was.
That's what it was.
And so you're watching Spec and Ben just like flipping this thing, and like I think Matt said it in the documentary when he was talking to Ben Smith afterwards. He's like, man, that thing fucked me up. Like, I don't understand. Like, how are you doing that? And Ben was like, well, did you ever learn to flip a tire?
Yeah.
And Matt was like, oh, you mean fitness isn't just snatches and muscle ups?
Yeah.
Wild.
Which, like,
and,
watching,
you know, and that was, well,
like watching Hendel crush that event. Like, if you know CrossFit Medfield, sitting outside of Medfield is a goddamn gigantic tire. And it's not there for looks, you know?
Nope. It's there for games training. And then you also, like, let's be honest, like, Spencer's the best rope climber in the game. Like, that dude can do a legless rope climb in like 1.5 pulls.
Right. Yeah.
He does one legless bicep curl on the rope and then slaps the beam because he's both tall and strong as fuck. So
he is
best rope climber in the game.
I don't know that we've resolved anything.
I think we did. I think the conclusion we came to, which I agreed with, was that if we're going, who can go from zero to hero faster is the weightlifter.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yes.
Who might have the better foundation in the long term to, like, either when it comes to a longevity thing in the sport, or they're going to like get there and be there longer at the top level, the gymnast. I can't disagree with that, because I think they probably are going to have better mobility and better motor control over the long term. So just based on that alone, they're likely to be less injured, especially because they're going to learn how to move properly. They're also probably a little bit, probably going to be, in theory, a little bit less beat up because they've not been handling, like, their tissues haven't just been beaten to death by load all over the place. And you know, I know that injuries happen. Like, I know gymnasts who have sustained significant injuries that still, you know, plague them to this day, but
haunt my dreams.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think that's a pretty accurate, like, kind of like a stalemate type thing. It's like, if we're trying to get to the games fastest, pick a weightlifter. If you're trying to get to the games and stay there the longest and have the best kind of like longevity career and accrue the most points on, you know, like overall multiple events, like pick a gymnast. Yeah. I can't disagree with it. So,
and of course, all of this is hypothetical. Carly has another really good one, which I'll discuss with you another time, which we started talking about it, and then she added a little tweak that blew my brain so wide open that I had to stop and go to sleep.
Is it like you're going to tell me after we finish recording it's going to ruin my day?
Well, so I can't, how was she describing it?
I've never met Carly, but she's going to be our new content creator, and just
right. So on the heels of that discussion, there was a discussion like, well, Kevin doesn't like the thumb around the pull-up bar. And she says, well, I mean, lots of top athletes don't wrap their thumb. But like Sam might say they've earned the right to do that. I would say, and then I responded, I wouldn't say they've earned it. I would say maybe upwards of 50 to 70% of people don't have a good reason why they don't wrap their thumb. They just do it because that's a thing that they do. And so it started it became a discussion about like, have elite level athletes earned the right to do things wrong? Wrong being defined very, very carefully.
Yeah, I was going to say, you got to be careful how you're defining wrong over there.
Right. And we can, I don't want to lose any more time because we're close to the hour, but that was the discussion point that she started with. And I think that, it's an interesting one. She has a great example that is not CrossFit related, which I had, which I had no experience with, and I had to get her to explain it to me. So maybe next time, but,
all right, maybe next time.
Between now and then, you know, whether you're weightlifting or gymnastics, potentially there's a career in high level CrossFit for you. So long as you are willing to endure endurance work.
Yeah. What? Godspeed
to you, because we're not going to fucking do it. Anyway, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for playing along. We'll see you next week. Everybody take care.